Good morning, good afternoon. The Backupmonster Show with Alan Conboy. How to scale your VMware alternatives. So really looking forward for this conversation. Alan, hello, my friend.
Hey, Paweł, it's great to see you again.
Yes, same here. So, like I said, I'm really thrilled to have you on this Backupmonster Show episode. I guess we have a lots of, not only in common. So I will not start about our technological alliance and integration between our products because I hopefully know that most of the viewers, so people who are watching us, knows it that we've been working each other for a while. But we are right now more important, how is it going in the modern world when somebody, we know who, a little bit shaked the market lately. But first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself and tell, what's the story behind your role in a scale computing company.
Sure. And for those that don't know me, my name is Alan Conboy. I'm the field CTO with Scale Computing. We are the guys, Scale Computing is, that the term hyperconverged was coined specifically to describe back in, oh, good Lord, 2010. Okay. We started life as a VMware alternative. And boy, has that come in handy in the last 2 months. I'll tell you what, it has been one heck of a ride with folks discovering that, hey, maybe being locked into VMware wasn't the best idea in the history of ever.
Nice one. So 14 years, and what we said in even LinkedIn saying that you have 14 years and 8 months in a scale. You're doing
Yes.
a field CTO role, and I remember when we last time we've met each other on Backup Monster Show. It was quite
hmm
a while. You said that you actually been one of the first who said that there is something there is a term like HCI. So if we could starting from the base, because I don't, hopefully everybody knows it, but what is behind the scene the term the HCI?
Sure. So HCI is an abbreviation for hyperconverged infrastructure. And what hyperconverged infrastructure really is a clean sheet of paper approach to how virtual infrastructure should have been designed and built in the first place. What I mean by that is virtual infrastructure, as everybody got to know it, started life as a college project at Stanford almost 30 years ago. Could you take the concepts of virtual machines from the AS400 space, from the mainframe space, and translate them into x86? Okay. Now, that of course worked. It worked fine. But the problem was to make a viable platform out of it. You had to borrow pieces of technology from multiple different technology domains, from the storage world, from the networking world, knowledge from all of the above, and tie that all together to be able to create virtualization's killer app, live migration and fault tolerance. Well, when we started Scale, we did so with a singular goal in mind. What if you could, instead of borrowing pieces of tech from all over the place and needing to have VCPs and CCNEs and SNIA certified storage engineers, what if you took, like I mentioned, a clean sheet of paper approach to how it should have been designed in the first place? Do it holistically, from the bottom up. Start with a self-healing, self-aware cluster. Make storage a key component of that self-aware, self-healing cluster. Make automation via AI and ML a key driver of managing that cluster. And then at that point, bring the hypervisor in as a kernel module to the OS that's powering the cluster as a whole. In doing that, you get rid of everything that didn't need to be there in the first place. You get rid of storage protocols. You get rid of the entire concept of SAN. You simply
Mhm.
don't need it. You get rid of so much wasted CPU and RAM. Face it, Pavel, go rip the lid off a NetApp box or an EqualLogic box, or choose your SAN or NAS of choice. When you open that lid up, there's a pile of cores and a pile of RAM that exist in that platform, in that box, just to handle the overhead of storage. Nobody buys that for that. They buy it to run workloads.
Mhm.
Well, what hyperconverged storage or hyperconverged platforms do when you get rid of all of the excess that didn't need to be there in the first place is they make your infrastructure an order of magnitude more efficient, and they make it so that you don't need those guys with acronyms or strings of acronyms behind their title to make your infrastructure go. I like to say you can take, if hyperconverged infrastructure is architected properly, you can take a kid straight out of the local community college, still waving around his A+ cert like he's the first human to ever get one. And that kid can be running your infrastructure without needing a whole lot of extra training in about 15 minutes.
But I actually saw one of the screens from your social media, from the scale computing, that the youngers, they just implement the scale cluster. So
Oh yeah.
because you lately introduced the edge one, so it's really
Mm-hmm.
small 3 boxes that you can run 3 node cluster, and it's so simplified. Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
How many virtual machines you can run in your hand?
That's the funny thing. Our only consumes between 1 and 4 gig of RAM and 1/10 of a core. But these things, they come with 32, 64, 128 gig of RAM.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking latest generation Intel, you've got an absolute pile of cores. A little 3-node cluster of those in a VDI implementation handles about 125 virtual desktops. And that's according to Login VSI, the experts on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
The world has changed from a technology perspective. And it's funny, we started talking about Broadcom and VMware here. Folks are just now starting to come up for air out of ignoring everything else that's been happening in the tech world for the last decade and a half to discover that, wow, there's been a whole lot of advancement that we really didn't know anything about because we were heads down in this legacy approach to virtualization.
Yeah, it's quite the same story, because VMware took roughly about 80% of the market. So
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, they monopolied it. So everybody,
Yes.
I'm going in VMware, and I'm not saying VMware is bad,
No.
but nobody didn't want to listen about the alternative way. And it was so commodity that if you're going into the virtualization, you're going into the ESXi, that when I started the store and I decided, okay, we will start with the KVM backup, not the VMware. Many people said, you are insane. There is no sense to go into this area. If you would like to grow, you need to build the VMware. And I said, okay, I will do the opposite. I will
Mm-hmm.
first treat the KVM user base as my native database that I would like to grow, because I see that there is a huge community behind the KVM that is working, significant amount of the workloads, and it's not only
Okay.
the dev or the labs, but there are real enterprise players running the KVM. And after a while, I'll discover the scale,
That's
and you
the
also
funny thing.
decided to use a KVM behind the scenes.
Exactly. KVM, so many people have used it and never realized it. Did you ever do a Google search? Guess what? You've used KVM. IBM, oh Lord, over 10 years ago, put out a red book comparing VMware to KVM. And what they discovered and published was that on equivalent hardware, for every 3 VMs you could run under ESXi, you could run 5 under KVM. It's an order of magnitude more efficient. There's a reason that Amazon moved to it. There's a reason that the entire Google Compute platform is powered by KVM. There's a reason that Apple punted VMware years ago and moved to the KVM ecosystem. It's an order of magnitude more efficient platform that just plain works. But very few people have been out, how do we say this, doing the marketing around it. That's
marketing is one thing. The second is that the awareness of the ESXi and the strength of the mirror was so big that it's hard to to go through the glass roof. I have for example the same right now with the comparing Storer to Veeam plus VMware. So because they build so much let's say attention on the market, that most of the customers never heard about the alternative to the other solutions. Right now it's changing, because if the customer is looking forward to have the alternative, they're asking, okay, dear backup vendor, what do you have here? How you support this kind of the technology? And this opens the new opportunities also from us. But here, what actually changed from the scale computing perspective? Because I watching you for the last years, I see that you have already have a matured offering on the market. You more focused in last years on the edge, but right now how this acquisition change, is change your direction? I'm actually really curious, what was most of the inquiries that you have as an HCI and the virtualization vendor here?
So I should preface this by saying that edge computing, outside the data center where humans actually do things, was not a pivot for scale, but a expansive recognition that our technology, unmodified, fit in those same places. So it's literally the exact same stack from edge to fog to core to cloud. But with that being said, when the 800-pound gorilla in the room suddenly gets pulled essentially off the market for anybody that's smaller than the Fortune 500, well, that makes you a very busy man when you're in our position here at scale. When folks are going from their VMware renewals at 80% of the market, like you mentioned, at, call it $10,000, and suddenly they get a new renewal and it's $60,000, $80,000, $100,000. That makes them wake up and take notice that there's alternatives, especially when it didn't fit their budget. But, here's the even bigger thing that I would put out there as far as an impact goes, Paweł. In our industry, resellers, partners are huge, right? They're the folks that make the connections from the customers and companies that have a need spread out across the globe to companies like yours and mine. They're critical. Broadcom axed a massive portion of their resellers and took their customers direct. Well, I do see folks needing to make the leap from VMware to alternative platforms, and there's plenty of really good ones out there. The folks that I think are feeling the greatest impact right now at this moment are the resellers that have been told, sorry, you can't sell our code anymore. Oh, and we're taking your customers away. That's been massive from an impact to scale. Folks that may never have looked beyond the VMware ecosystem historically are taking a long, hard second look at scale. I would also posit, and this is where I see it really impacting your company, Paul. Historically, folks liked to mentally tie VMware to specific applications from an infrastructure perspective, backup and other things, right? Well, now they're being woken up that VMware doesn't fit your budget. One of the stories that stands out to me is a children's hospital in London watching their annual renewal. And bear in mind, this is a not-for-profit children's hospital. Watching their annual renewal go from £6,000 sterling to over 50,000, and being told by their Broadcom rep, sorry, VMware is just not for everyone anymore. Well, when you think about people like that, and that they'd been in that VMware ecosystem and using all, backup products, if you will, that were tied to that, Veeam and others, they're now not only needing to walk away from their legacy hypervisor, they also need to revisit their entire ecosystem. And that's part of why the relationship between scale and storeware has been so important these last few months. Between our two companies, we're giving all of these folks a safe place to land.
And what you said from the business partner perspective and resellers, they need also the proof technology, because they need to change the specialization not in a year or two. They have sometimes weeks or months at least to have the assurance that they have a proper alternative, because they also would like to, they would like to be a trusted advisors from the customer's perspective. So that's why, building the proper ecosystem and giving the right technology with the assurance that, you will be in the right hands after the migration, it's necessary.
It is.
So I see from my inbound, and leads, that one of the third each inquiry is we moving from, help us here. And we've never had this kind of the traction. We've been always got the information like we're building the new projects based on a KVM, on a scale, or beside the VMware. Right now, we get migration, we're moving, we just want to get rid of. So to be honest, even a year ago, when I knew that the Broadcom acquisition will come, I couldn't, let's say, predict that it will goes into such a, let's say, drastic way to cutting out 80% of the revenue stream. Maybe not from the money perspective, but from the numbers of the partners.
Very true.
So from
Yeah, and
I didn't know years ago that the virtualization market will, let's say, reinvent, let's say, naturally. I thought it will stay like this. I knew that the KVM based hypervisor, they grow in the last years, but it was the percentage, not huge amount. But I'm really keen to see where we will be landing in a few years ahead, both of us. So definitely it will be the third Backupmonster show.
It's funny, Paweł. You guys made a fantastic choice in making KVM your first primary target. Full stop. And the reason I say that is simply this. When you're coming out of the VMware world, your choices are either to go all in on Azure Stack HCI and Microsoft Cloud and take all of your eggs out of the VMware basket and put them firmly in the Microsoft basket. Well, you just learned a nasty lesson about having all your eggs in one basket, courtesy Hocktan and Broadcom. Well, outside of that, your choices They're almost all KVM based, whether you're talking about Virtuoso or Proxmox or standard Linux distro of choice and enable virtualization. It's all KVM, scale included. And the primary name for backup in the KVM space is Storeware. You guys are in the absolute catbird seat right now, and folks are starting to really discover that. I think you're right.
Slowly, especially competition, but discovered, believe me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So-
No, I think a couple of years from now, you're going to be looking back on this moment very fondly.
Looking forward, but come back to scale. What's the average size of, let's grab anybody who are first time hear about the scale computing,
Sure.
and they will asking the question, okay, but what is the, let's say, perfect match? Is a mid-size company, SMB, enterprise, because it's HCI? So
Sure.
what type of the infrastructure fits to my need if I will replace at this stage the VMware? If you could
Okay.
given us that advice from your side.
So the interesting answer there is there's not just one answer. Okay. My
Typical
smallest
consultant.
my smallest customers, smallest locations, they might have 3 of these. Some of them only have 1, right? And that's fine. You don't need a whole heck of a lot in today's world. My largest customers, from a number of locations perspective, have tens of thousands of locations that have conventional clusters at every one of those locations. From a capacity perspective, airports, resorts globally that are running petabytes of scale, powering everything from security cameras to infrastructure. Okay. Now, with all of that said, when we first built the company, we very much focused on the needs of the SMB and the mid-market, because those were the folks that we felt needed infrastructure that was easy to use, affordable, self-healing, cost-effective, more than anybody else. Everybody wanted to chase whales, but at the end of the day, the whales are only, 5% of the world's population? There's a whole lot more mackerel and trout than there are whales. Well, we built a platform for the mackerel and trout, the SMB and the mid-market. But as we move forward through the last decade, we've discovered more and more folks pulling us upstream into these very large and very distributed implementations for a variety of reasons. From ease of use to, a cloud-like infrastructure that doesn't stick you in a Chinese finger trap. That's scale. Long story made very short.
And I like you have also the fleet management. So you have 100 of the thousands of the small environments, the edge.
Mhm.
You can simplify it and manage it from one side, and you can easily simplify all of the upgrades. And what I notice, the support and the community behind the scenes. So there's a lots of good stuff behind the scale that is not visible from let's say from the first date, from the first scene. So it's not only technology, but the great people behind, and the good SLA, especially from the support point of view. What I always liked from the HCI perspective is that you forgetting about the traditional way of building the infrastructure, because I started as a backup specialist in IBM. Then I moved into the storage division, building always the storage from the blocks, the virtualization, the powers, etc. Move into the system integrator reseller, and I realized that to complicate the infrastructure, it's always good for the reseller, not for the customers in the end, unfortunately. So I would, when I first time heard about the HCI, And then I realized that, okay, you can build by the blocks, you can CapEx, you can OpEx, you can
Mm-hmm.
simplify not only the way how you design and build as an architect, but you can focus on the different layers. This is what I, always believed, that using the HCI gives you the more space for the other things. Like,
It
do
does.
not think about the proper firmware related to different layers. Why
Mm-hmm.
we should care about it in 2024? Yes, in 2015, to be honest, 10 years ago. Uh, I know one of the answers why, because the people loves to doing something and feel that they are irreplaceable. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons.
This is
Uh,
true.
yeah, but I always encourage, find the proper technology that give you a space to learning something new. If
Mm-hmm.
you leave the infrastructure, you can start to the upper layers. You can go to the application side. You can think about some development, automation part. You can start the Puppet, Pocket, whatever. Do not only stuck on the infrastructure side. But I still see that many resellers, unfortunately, they still see that little bit complicate the architecture part, giving the more sales, unfortunately, and customers do not take in the advantage based on this philosophy. So I'm fully on the HCI philosophy, because it makes our life easier. Yes, that's why we also, from the
Indeed.
storage perspective, build the agentless way to protect the HCI. There is no sense to
Mm-hmm.
install the agent, because every agent gives you an additional layer of the complexity. If it's simple, it consumes for you a time to manage it, to upgrade it, etc.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I'm a huge one for analogies, Powell. That's just who I am, right? And the analogy I give people in a conversation like this is I'm very good at doing the maintenance on my car, but I'd rather be driving it.
Yeah.
In much the same exact way. Yeah, you can spend your Saturday nights in the data center trying to figure out which power supply went up in smoke, or which cable got kicked out, or which board fried. Or you can run an infrastructure that makes none of that matter, that self heals, self load balances around it, and spend your Saturday nights with your family or your friends. Free up not just physical space, but mental space and budget for doing the things that move your business forward, that improve your life. That's what a hyperconverged mentality really is all about. Prioritization.
And simplification. Yes, from
Indeed.
managing perspective, from upgrading, and got rid of the dependency between the different layers. This is a huge, let's say, nobody's tell you about it, but every specialist or every admin that I have a time to discuss behind the scene what's the main pain for them. Is the maintenance part. Yes, so
Oh
upgrading,
yeah.
etc. It's also related to the backing up, because most of the problems are related when they changing something into the infrastructure part.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I've talked to so many people over the course of the last 2 months that have been absolutely buried in the vSphere focused world. Okay. And they're absolutely stunned, not by what they need to do in a scale environment and a proper hyperconverged environment, but by all the things they don't need to do, all the things that are taken care of for them. For example, a moment ago you mentioned our Fleet Manager product, right? That monitors, manages thousands of locations from a browser window. But one of the things that Fleet Manager enables is automation of deployment out to thousands of sites via Ansible runbooks and Cloud Init things like the storeware master server, things like your application stacks, so that you don't have to run from location to location to location or figure out VPNing or any of that silliness. And those are things that just didn't exist in the VMware world. You know, not needing to think about VMFS file systems because they don't exist and don't need to. Not having to think about iSCSI initiators and targets and layer 2 iSCSI backplane networks and security exposures associated with all of that. With proper hyperconverged infrastructure, that all gets eliminated, along with its security exposures and the work required to maintain it.
You know what I'm also thinking, what is actually one of the issues for the existing specialists who love the VMware for the last 1 or 2 decades? This change, because people don't like it changes. And they're right now a little bit forced to have it, not even from they internally, because they would like to keep it up with the VMware, but based off the customer inquiries, they don't have a choice. They need to learn something new. So I'm curious how they will cope with this change, especially from the reselling perspective. The people who actually consult and advise, are trusted advisor for the customers. I'm really keen how it goes in the next months.
It's going to be interesting to watch. But one thing actually working in their favor, whether they know it or not, is that while VM kernel and VMware writ large is very good from a virtualization and containerization platform perspective, it's great code. They earned their way to that monstrous market share, right? But that being said, you know what's bigger? Linux. You know what's capable of far more than just ESX? Linux. KVM is rapidly becoming all of those VCPs pathway into a much bigger and more capable world than just the subset they'd known before. If you wanted to play with the 3,000 knobs in ESX, and that was fun, well, wait till you find the 90,000 in Linux and with KVM. Because there's stuff there that you can do with KVM and Linux that you could never do with VMware. I think that you're on the cusp of a dawn of discovery when it comes to folks learning that there's a bigger world out there.
Interesting. So, like I said, if we'll have the third session, like 2 years, we'll see the results.
Indeed.
The Broadcom decision is to only focus on the biggest players, and this is the part of, let's say, this is the business decision. But what do you think? What will happen from the technology perspective? If they will keen to, still build the first place, and be ahead from the competition, or they will just rely on what they built already in the last 20 years. So what's your opinion here?
My opinion is formed by a couple of things. First and foremost, I watched firsthand what Broadcom did to CA and to a couple of other acquisitions. I also have an opinion formed by Hock Tan, the CEO at Broadcom's own statements of a year ago, saying that there would be an absolute focus on the needs of the SMB. There would be no price increases. Well, we've seen how far that statement went once the regulators had said okay. And we've seen that they're taking the exact same path with VMware that they took with CA and Symantec and others. Okay. Innovation in the Broadcom world is not the most common thing. Money generation is what Broadcom is all about. Now, does that mean that there will be a staling of innovation in the virtual infrastructure space? Absolutely not. Luckily, there's some amazing alternatives in virtual infrastructure, be it containers, be it virtual machines, that run an entire gamut that are largely based on KVM. That's where the innovation is post January 8th of 2024 moving forward.
What about the containers? Because, you know, some of the vendors saying that the containers will rule the world and they will replace the virtualization workloads. I'm not so optimistic when I see this kind of this statement. And I'm also curious about what's going on with Tanzu. I got a few friends around there saying that the Tanzu will be the next one to sell, like like Horizon, because it didn't was so successful on the VMware side against the other. So what do you think here? What's your opinion?
Let's start with containers. First and foremost, why do containers exist? Well, containers exist because the legacy approach to virtualization, what I like to call the inverted pyramid of doom, multiple servers plus multiple switches plus somebody's SAN, was horrifically inefficient. Okay? To do something as trivial as change a period to a comma in a Word doc on a VM was no fewer than 14 hops round trip, plus the overhead of RAID penalty, plus the realization that, you know, iSCSI LUNs, data stores, and VMDKs, they're all just empty files, object files, sparse files, sitting on file systems, sitting on RAID sets, interconnected by TCP and IP and the overhead of storage protocols. It was horribly inefficient. And then once you expanded that slightly, you discovered very, very quickly that when you had 47 different Windows instances, they were all competing to do the exact same thing because you had 47 different copies of the same DLL, right? Containers were invented, in my opinion, as a way to combat the fundamental inefficiency in the piecemeal approach to virtualization that was servers plus switches plus SAN plus hypervisor. Now, certain hyperconverged approaches eliminated all that complexity, eliminated all of it, making the benefit of containers much, much smaller. You know, containers, they aren't inherently highly available. They aren't inherently fault tolerant. In some cases, they don't need to be. In other cases, they really need to be. Well, when implemented on a proper infrastructure that doesn't eat up all of the efficiency, containers in virtual machines makes a ton of sense. When implemented in a legacy approach, that makes no sense at all. Do I see a future that's all containers? No, not even close. They do have their uses, absolutely. The ability to spin up a simple Docker instance for grab this piece of data, process it, toss an output, and punt the container. Yeah, there's absolute edge use cases for that that make so very much sense. The trick is having an infrastructure that supports both. Now, you had a second question, a second part of that after containers, and I'm struggling to remember what it was.
After the containers, ah
Yeah.
gosh, I need to have a shorter ones. Uh, oh gosh, I forgot also.
Well, we'll circle back to it in the next one.
For sure. Oh, actually, this is a question for our audience. What was my second thought on my previous question? We will double check if somebody listen us
There you go.
here, Alan. So no worries here. Mm, what I want more curious is that because what I see in the last decade is to from one side what I told you from the HCI
Hmm.
is I always believing that it's all about the simplification. But what I see from the market approach is that we are keen or tend to even more complex the infrastructure. From one way, we have a bunch of the new technology, but I don't see that the infrastructure after the last decade is simpler. I see that we try we trying to do the simplification, but in the end we have we go into the public cloud, we build in the hybrid, we go in doing the containers, we trying to figure it out how to nest the container or the virtualization into the container. We trying to so
Hmm.
many of my friends saying, gosh, I from one side we are, let's say, there is a flourish of the beauty great technologies, but from the other side there is too much, and we need to choose a proper ones because not all of the technology align to our needs.
This is true.
That's why the proper consultants and trusted advisor who's saying this is for you, it's this type, this containers will let's say provide you the 90% of your problems. You should stick with the virtualization engines. You don't need the containers because you still have a monolithic applications, and you will need a 5-7 years till you will build something new from the scratch from the development perspective.
Hmm.
But I see that especially when we go coming from the backup vendor to the production sites, we see that, oh gosh, it started to be even more complicated than it used to be.
Oh yeah.
uh,
You know,
so
if there's,
having the HCI approach, believe me, it will also make my life easier from as a backup vendor.
it does. I would say this: if our industry, high tech, has one Achilles heel, it's simply this: engineers love to do things because they can, not because they should. And that's how you wind up with 36 different solutions to the exact same problem. That's also how you wind up with products searching for a problem to solve.
Mhm.
You know, the high tech industry historically has tracked very close to the explorative nature of the university. And at times that has served us well. But at other times, it has created the same kind of complexities that you were just describing. Unnecessarily complex Rube Goldberg machines to trap a mouse that a simple mousetrap will take care of. You are absolutely correct. We do need to pick some teams and play now.
I I have some nickname for you. So it's because you love analogy. You will have a nickname in my company, Alanalogy. Beauty. I love this mouth analogy that you describe. How to start because we will closely running out of time.
Mhm.
Alan, how to, for all of the audience, how to start to play with scale. So let's see that we would like to see how it works, in our lab and a whole home lab in our work, how to best start the journey with you.
Okay, so this is actually, we've tried to make this as easy as possible. Go to our website, scalecomputing.com. From there, you will be directed specifically into folks that can facilitate getting you onto scale clusters, either in person or remotely. You'll be exposed and introduced to our ecosystem partners like Storeware, and how you can start to see how you can pull together all of the pieces that you need to easily replace an infrastructure that's being yanked out from underneath you. We've made
So
that
as
as
simply as it
simple as
is, so
possible.
just go on scalecomputing.com.
That's the easiest place to start. You know, all of the usual suspects know about scale. All of the CDWs and SHIs and TD Synexes and Lenovo's and Dells of the world, they all know about scale. And they're all paths to scale, absolutely. But the easiest place to start to see where things are what without a sales guy breathing down your neck is our website.
Great.
That'll map you to everything you need very, very quickly. And I'll tell you what, if that's causing, if even that is leaving questions in your mind, send me an email. I'll take some time out of my day to help you out.
Great. And the last question, a little bit tricky one. So if we'll see each other in 2 years, 3 years ahead, what numbers of the decision from the Broadcom, how the market share will looks like? Virtualization market share.
If we're
I
talking
know,
in
it's a
terms
tough and
of,
tricky one, yeah.
that's a tough one. If we're talking in terms of number of customers, VMware will have slid from 80+% to around 40 or slightly less, is my take. That's just my personal opinion. Because they actively want to get rid of the customers that are the most expensive to them. That being all of the SMB, all of the mid-market. They want those Fortune 50 guys, those .edus, .govs, that are so embedded that they can't extricate themselves. That's their business choice. I don't have a horse in their decisions, right? Microsoft will have made some significant inroads. Scale will have made some significant inroads. I know this because I'm seeing it firsthand right now. There will be a significant percentage change in how many folks are running KVM-based infrastructures.
So looking forward to it. I'm curious how these numbers will align to the store, because we believe in that we are one of the top choices when the customers is moving into the KVM, KVM-ish hypervisors. And of course, one of the our favorite choices is scale computing. I'm not saying because we are cooperating. I'm saying because we played with your technology. We really enjoyed the typical appliance. We saw the edge. We see how you design it and what's the people behind it. And this is one of the, let's say, this is even more important for us, as a people who build in the company, with whom we are, let's say, aligning with. And this is important that because if everything goes well, there is no problem. But we are the software only vendors, so if something happens, the attitude and the motivation of the team and the culture behind the scenes is one of the most significant things that is important for not only for the DSTs partners but also for the customers.
Indeed.
And that's why we really enjoy to cooperate with each other, and hopefully we'll see more and more traction. And I'm also curious how our next episode will looks like. So like I said, Please fasten your seatbelts, and we'll see each other in 24, maximum 36 months, because this topic will come back, and we will compare these numbers and the visions from today episode with the next one with Alan. What do you think?
I think I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a real page turner right now. Let's put it that way.
So, Alan, appreciate your time. Thank you to discover and deep dive what actually the state computing is doing, what's the today path and the future path. Remember, the scale computing doing a great job from the virtualization perspective, but also invested and disrupt the market from the edge perspective. So if you're not only looking for replacement for VMware, but looking for some innovation, especially in the edge, Alan and the team are the proper folks to talk about it. And of course, if you will think about the hashtag backup recovery, you have a choices, but of course, the top one, one of the top ones should be the store.
Indeed.
So, so appreciate your time, Alan. Like always, was a great discussion. For all of the audience, if you right now watching the live or post live on YouTube, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to leave a comment. With Alan, we'll try to make reply as fast as possible when our team will notify us. So have a great day. For all of you, Alan, last time, thank you. See you in touch, and enjoy the rest of the year. I know it's a tough one because it's too much work to do. But as we spoke before the Backup Monster Show, be careful what you wish. So looking forward for many of the successful deployments and the migration projects, and see you on the one of the next Backup Monster Show episodes.
Looking forward to it. And thanks again, Paweł.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye bye.